evening, good night, whatever time it is where you happen to be. Over here, it's already after sundown at some point in the evening or night. And it's quite a time to be here. And for those of you who are wondering, yes, I'm currently in an area under uh, quite regular rocket fire. And people are going about their daily lives. There's sirens, pretty much daily, multiple times, whatever. Plenty of areas that have a lot more, even. There's plenty of areas that have a lot less. And we're just coping with it the way people do. And, when you're in an area that is in an active combat zone, basically, or active war zone, effectively, even if you're not in a so-called front line, when your home front is being attacked by rockets, it's literally the front line, right? At the moment, this whole country is the front line because this whole country is or can be affected by rockets, and pretty much there isn't an area of this country that hasn't been affected by it during this war. So it's something that everyone here has to deal with. Now, what does that have to do with what Bitcoin did and is going to do next? Quite a lot, actually, because when you're living in a theater of conflict, you appreciate Bitcoin a little bit differently than when you're living in a different kind of place. It's maybe softer and cushier. And even though the currency here is fairly strong and stable, even though the economy has held up fairly well for most, it certainly has not held up very well for everyone. There are a lot of people relative to the norm that are struggling some pretty intense times. The job market is pretty tough. There's, relative to what it was before this war, investments are still growing. In fact, over the past year, there were record investments in the country in tech firms and things like that. But nevertheless, the job market itself is hurt by the military force using up a lot of people and taking people away from their jobs, and people losing their jobs when they come back to work after being away for a while. There's a lot of that going on. It can be quite difficult for many people to get on. And again, that is why Bitcoin can be incredibly useful for people, because if you're suddenly not earning any more of the local currency, but you can have other sources of income that could even be in crypto or whatever other kind of thing. Here we go. How is it night for you? It's 3 for you. Well, it depends what time zone you're in, doesn't it? I'm in an area where it's night. I don't know how to say your name, but Croblix in my video. Anyway, so Bitcoin is actually a useful currency, even in a country where you have a relatively stable and strong economy and currency and all that. You can still find many uses for crypto and Bitcoin and whatever other good crypto you happen to like. They got cash, they got ATMs here, or ATM type services here. Right? One of the very first ATMs, I think Bitcoin ATMs, was actually based in Tel Aviv. So if you were ever wondering, I remember when that happened too. It was like, I think 2012, 2014, somewhere around that time. It was a Bitcoin ATM in a place called the Dizengoff Center in Tel Aviv, way back in the day, and a good 10 years ago. There's still a bunch of them in this country, and a lot of services that offer coin services to cash out. to transfer, to deposit. You can buy, you can buy all kind of ADA. There's a bunch of things you can buy or sell at these crypto ATMs that you have here, which I still think are actually some of the best services, because despite what appear to be high fees at them, in some cases it can seem quite high, but they're usually not higher than ATM fees if you're traveling and taking out money from an account that you held internationally. Right? Very often with traditional banks, you'll pay two fees at the ATM, or even three if you're taking out cash internationally. Right? You'll pay an ATM fee, you'll pay a currency conversion fee, and you'll pay a bank withdrawal fee from your account. So like 3 fees just to withdraw something, and can usually add up to be at least 5% of your withdrawal. Depends on how much your withdrawal is, your limits are, and what your fees are, but it can easily be 3% or more, and easily be over 5% and higher. And crypto ATMs, on the other hand, crypto ATM services, I've noticed typically anywhere from 0.5% to 3% for different services. So it can actually be very worthwhile, depending on the service. It can actually save you money compared to taking out fiat from an ATM. And you get the money in fiat. They'll give you cash out, Bitcoin or Solana or USDT or whatever. They give you the money in your local currency, and the exchange fee is like less than your ATM would be. Okay, so they might not have as many locations as regular bank ATMs, but if you happen to be near one, it can actually save you a pretty penny for any given transaction that you might do. Anyway, so what is Bitcoin and crypto going to do now that it has done what it did in basically the first week, or most of the first week of October? Well, didn't I tell you in the first week of October, there's a very high probability that we could see the price pretty much go down and then, start to maybe meander over. And somewhere in the second week, possibly, we might see it begin to head up somewhere around the middle of the month. Well, it still looks pretty much on course for that remaining a possibility. That doesn't mean that has to happen, but the probabilities are pretty good at the moment if you look at all the VEPs info on the daily and the weekly and even the lower time frames. But the weekly and the daily showing very good probabilities of that happening sometime in the next week or two. So if that does happen, that should be quite good. All right, that's it for now.